For Libby Logan, every day felt like a calculus problem. If she went to her son's game tonight, would she be able to work tomorrow? If she drove to visit family, would she spend the next 2 days recovering? If she played tennis, what would it cost her afterwards? For years, that's how she lived, constantly calculating what pain would take from her next. And she's not alone. For many people living with back and neck pain, life becomes less about what you want to do and more about what you can tolerate. Today, Libby is back on the tennis court. She's traveling. She's walking 15,000 steps through Paris with her sister without even thinking twice about it. But getting there came after years of searching for answers and wondering if she would ever get her life back. She is sharing her story today in hopes that someone else who is still searching realizes there may be answers that they just haven't found yet. This is Libby's story. Hi, Libby.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. All right. I want to start our conversation today with the good stuff because what you've been able to get back to is really miraculous. And I think when people meet you today, they probably have no idea how hard it was for you not very long ago. So, and I don't know if it's obvious how hard you had to fight to get where you are. So, for anyone out there who's listening, watching, and feels like they're not being heard, seen, or helped, I want them to start with the hope part of your story.
Sure.
6 months ago, you played tennis for the first time in how long?
So I played tennis in March for the first time in probably over 3 years.
Wow. And what
Yeah.
was that like?
It was fun. It was so fun. I was still a little stiff. You know, not a great tennis but
Nothing
it
for
felt
Wimbledon just yet.
good
Yeah.
to swing a tennis racket and to know that I could do it and not be in pain.
So it didn't hurt.
No, it felt great.
Okay. And then you just sent me some pictures. I mean, Libby, I want to be living your life. You just got back from where?
I just got back from Paris. Spent about 8.5 days. My sister moved there the first of March, and so went to see her, and we did tons everything. I mean, we went from about 10 o'clock in the morning until 10:30 or 11 at night every day, and we just saw tons and tons of things, and my feet gave out, and my exhaustion gave out way before anything else. My back never bothered me.
And you said
So
like 15,000 steps a day.
on average, some days were closer to 20. It was a lot of walking. Yeah.
And zero back pain.
Zero back pain.
Wow. Aside from the things you're doing, the other thing I want to give people hope for is that you say you're not living in fear anymore. You used to be afraid of how you would wake up or sort of worry about things. We talked about the calculus equations
Yes.
you were doing.
Yes.
Does that hang on when you're not in pain anymore, or have you let go of that?
It's getting easier, but it's still like when I think about doing yard work or, something that I haven't attempted yet, like travel, I worried like, how am I going to do after a long plane ride and, all that. And so it's just about just pushing myself to do the next thing and giving myself a little space in case, I am tired or, hurt or whatever. And then, but I mean, I can't think of a single thing that I've had to not do because it hurt. So, which is so crazy to think about. Like every time I say that out loud, I'm like, is that really true? And I'm like, it is true.
Wow. Okay,
So
now let's
it's
talk people through how wild that is, because when we
so
talk,
wild.
it really is bonkers, because your pain story is one of intense pain, and it also lasted a long time, right? When did it start? How long ago?
The really intense pain started about 3.5 years ago. I had a major, I guess you'd call it a flare or whatever. And I went from working out 4 days a week to could not sleep through the night in my own bed. Agonizing pain, the kind that you want to take steroid shots for, take crazy muscle relaxers, and can't function because you're taking muscle relaxers.
Where was it
It's
originally?
lower back, lumbar. Yeah.
And you had said it started like on a car trip or something, maybe? Is that right?
Yeah, it was when we got home from a trip over Thanksgiving, and I mean, like, just it was like a switch flipped and wouldn't flip off. And I mean, I did multiple rounds of PT, chiropractor, muscle relaxers, ice, heat, everything I could think of to try to calm it down. And I mean, it would calm down a little, but I just couldn't get back to where I had been before, like,
And
and
where you were before was pretty active, right? You've mentioned
oh yeah,
tennis, you did
tennis.
Pilates.
I was weightlifting. Reformer Pilates. I've done
Yes.
reformer Pilates for probably 10 years, and all of that was extremely difficult.
You talk about that carousel where you were trying all of these things. Those are designed to address the symptoms. Did you understand what was causing it all? Did anyone flag anything for you initially?
So the only person that flagged anything was my chiropractor when he did the x-ray, and he was like, hang on a minute, you have some really unusual anatomy, and I don't know if you know, I'm going to have to consult another chiropractor that has more experience than I do to see how to best treat you. And so he was the first one that said, transitional vertebra, extra, lumbar segment, those type
Did you
words.
hear the
And so
word
that
Bertolotti's or not yet?
he did not use the word Bertolotti's that I remember. It was the transitional vertebra, the extra segment, is really what he pointed out. And so that was kind of what led me down the rabbit hole to find the term Bertolotti's.
How did you find the term?
It was just I was Googling, all the things. And I think pretty early on I found the Bertolotti's Facebook group and joined it because everything that I read, as soon as I saw it, I thought, this sounds just like what I've been going through. But my husband accuses me of having a WebMD. And so, I wanted to learn as much as I could. I wanted to look at, factual studies, things that, I don't want to be the person that only listens to people that blog about things that are just human experience. I do believe in science and, you know,
What did you,
um,
for anyone who's watching or listening and maybe has heard that term transition, extra vertebra or something going on there,
yeah.
or Bertolotti's, what was the definition that you learned that made you think, oh, that sounds like me? How would you describe it for people out there?
Um, just the fact that it was this not one constant pain area. Like mine kind of moved from my lumbar to my hip. And it would be sometimes it would be worse on one side and sometimes it'd be worse on the other. This idea of like it's not just one place and that it kind of spurs pain in other areas is really what kind of made me go, this sounds like what could be going on. Because you go to a PT and they're like, oh well, I think it's your IT band or it's your SI joint or all these things, and they would focus their energy in that one place, and I would get a little better in that one place, but it was like, oh, there's still this nagging thing over here. And so I'm like, nobody's getting to the root here.
I've talked to a number of patients who have this diagnosis, and it's amazing how many of them say the turning point for them came when they found that group you're talking about. Can you
Yes,
tell me what you were hearing from doctors versus what you were hearing from other people in that group who have
right.
Bertolotti's? They're pretty educated and they seem
Sure.
like an incredible resource that's really
It is
finally pointing
crazy.
people in the
I mean,
right place. Yeah.
I have never seen a Facebook group so organized and so methodical in their information, and like they're constantly making sure that the data that they have is up to date and organized and easy to search and educating people on how to like find what they're looking. It is
And
crazy.
unfortunately, they have to do that because doctors a lot of doctors don't seem to
Right.
understand, do
Yes.
they?
So the very first doctor that I went to, specialist that I went to for um, my back pain, it was about 6 months into everything. Um, got an MRI, went in. His PA did some, physical movements with me and asked me some questions. The doctor comes in. He looks at my MRI. He looks at me and he goes, "There's nothing physically wrong with you." And he turns around and walks out.
Hmm. And that
And
was
I'm like, I heard in that moment, "You're a pill seeker." And I had already told his PA, I've been trying to avoid, muscle relaxer. I don't like how I feel on pain medication. I really hate opioids. Like, I do not like how I feel on them. I want to solve this problem as, you know, in less, as little invasiveness as I can, as little medication as I can. Like, if it's eating healthy, if it is exercise, whatever, if it's avoiding a certain act, like, I'm okay with all of that. But just to be completely dismissed without even a conversation just was so defeating.
and it was not the only time, right?
So he was really the main one that completely dismissed that I was even in pain.
Okay.
Like, he just didn't even believe that I was in pain. And so it was over almost a year or more before I went back to another specialist. And so I went for my annual female appointment and saw a new doctor. And so she's kind of doing my full medical history. And I tell her, I've been in this chronic back pain for over a year now. And she's like, "Well, who's treating you?" And I'm like, "Nobody. I can't get anybody to listen to me." And she's like, "That's not acceptable." And I'm like,
Thank you.
"Yeah, thanks." And so she sends me to a doctor, and it's somebody she went to medical school with. And I mean, I think he has a pretty good reputation in the area, and he had heard of Bertolotti's. He completely, like, he did say, "Yes, you do have a transitional vertebra." He did not think that it was my pain generator. And that part was true. I mean, Dr. Haines agreed with that. Um, but he didn't ever pinpoint what was my pain generator, how to fix it, and why I was in so much pain. Like, he didn't see the relationship between my anatomy and what was causing me to be in so much pain. And so we went down the rabbit hole of the pain injections and the nerve ablations and more PT and jumping through all the insurance hoops and, all the things. And in the end, I couldn't go through with surgery with him because he couldn't explain how it would even help me.
Can
And in
you
fact,
give
he
us,
told me it wouldn't help me
I was
long
gonna say,
term.
can you give us a brief description of what happened?
So my
Your
very
last
last
moment with
appointment
that
was almost a year ago now. I had the third MRI in 3 years, and I'd been, again, gotten up early, driven 2 hours, gone through the MRI, sat in his waiting room, waited for him for probably an hour.
in a
As
very uncomfortable chair.
very uncomfortable, in a lot of pain. And he comes in and he doesn't even come in the room. He doesn't sit down. He stands in the door. He doesn't give me a copy of the radiology report. He just rattles off this long list of things. And he says, "I think your best option at this point is a fusion." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "How does that help me?" And he said, "Well, um, I said, "How does that address all of my pain?" And he says, "It won't." And I said, "Okay, well, what part of my pain do you think it will address?" And he's like, "Well, it's hard to know until we do the surgery." And he tells me it'll be like a 6-month recovery, and I'll probably won't be able to work for 3 months. And, um, I won't be able to bend over, pick anything up, basically be useless is how I heard it for 3 months. And, that even if it helps my pain, it'll probably be temporary, and it'll probably, be future surgeries down the line. And he looks at his watch and he says, "Any other questions?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Great. If you want to get something on the calendar, let my PA know." And he turns on his heel and walks out. And I just was like, did that really just happen? And so I was just so furious because I thought, number one, like zero compassion for the fact that I'm probably about his age, mid 40s. And I bet that if he couldn't go play tennis or whatever he does with his buddies or go to the lake on Saturday or, play with his kids or whatever it is, like he would be finding some answers, and it wouldn't be, oh, let's try another pain injection in 3 months, and like my 85-year-old patient next door, let me just limp you along on some injections. And so I just
Tell me this, Libby. I mean, I'm so sorry, first of all, because it's inhuman. Um, when you're in that moment and it's year 3, that was year 3, right?
that was year 3. Yeah.
So when you're in year 3 and you've had all these doctors say these things to you, do you believe it in some sense? Do you say, no way, buddy? And like, how do you know whether he's right, whether to keep searching? Like, what kept you moving on in that moment?
I think the only thing that kept me moving on is like what I had heard on that Bertolotti's page, that there are doctors out there that are solving this mystery, that, that there is somebody that knows more. And I mean, logically, I think we have to know that, is that, just because somebody went to medical school and they got a degree and they practice a certain area of medicine does not make them an expert in every single case that they encounter. And so, is it exhausting to keep searching for that person that can unlock the mystery? Yes, but I just have always been that person, like second opinions. If it doesn't answer all my questions, I'm just hesitant. I want to talk to somebody else that maybe can explain it better. I mean, I'm just one of those people that if you can't explain it where I understand it and it makes sense, I'm not gonna go there. So
Thank goodness. Okay, so let's get to the next surgeon you met. Is it
yes,
through that group that you find your way to Dr. Haines at VSI?
yes, 100%. I had been following Dr. Haines and Dr. Jenkins, and there are a few other names that popped up, but those were the main two. I had gotten, there's a group that does like webinars like on a Sunday, and I joined one of those a few months before and listened to them talk about, their philosophy. And I mean, just the fact that they're willing to educate and to take an hour out of their weekend to reach out to this group of people just blew my mind, because most doctors take off at noon on Friday or don't even work
The
on
last one
Friday.
couldn't even come into the clinic room.
Yes, right. Yes. And so, they're just itching to get out on the golf course. And so I was like, there's something different about these people. And so, and then I got on Dr. Haines, the podcast, and I watched several of those episodes and listened to some women's stories. And again, it was just every time I listened to one of those stories or read a post with somebody that had been treated on that Facebook group, it was like, that sounds like what I've been going through. And so it just kind of kept giving me hope that the answer was out there. And
But going to
so
see him, what state are you in?
I'm in Mississippi.
So he's in Virginia. This is not an easy
Yes,
trip.
not a easy trip.
What was different the first time you met him? Was it in person or virtual?
So I did a virtual appointment first, and number one, the amount of time. I mean, I kind of expected him to be on for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and to spend the rest of the time with the PA. And I'm pretty sure he spent over 30 minutes with me on that call, And so just the amount of time, the detail questions that he asked about my pain, about, my history, about what I wanted my life to look
I was
like.
gonna
I
say,
think
you
that's
said
what
there was
really.
one question that blew your mind that nobody had asked you in 3 years. Is that what it was?
Yes, I mean, yes. What do you expect? What are you wanting to be able to do? What is your goal for this treatment? And I thought, wow, that's yeah,
And yours was
completely.
not climb Mount Kilimanjaro. What was your goal?
I mean, I wanted to just be able to, like, I don't know, do daily tasks. My laundry, my
You
my
said
dishes.
you said you wanted to be able to take the garbage can down.
Yeah, take the garbage can down to the end of the road. Yeah, there was a day last summer. I think my son was at camp, and I was home by myself, and I hear the garbage truck, around the block, and I'm like, shoot, they didn't take it out before they left, and so I'm out there, and I'm like pulling on the can, and I literally could not move the can to roll it to the end of my driveway, and so I was just sitting there like, I mean, I'm going to be empty nest in a few years. How am I going to do life
Yeah.
if I can't even roll my own garbage can down to the end of the driveway?
So what did he say to you when you said all of this stuff?
He said, "I think I can help you." And he said, I think you need some more diagnostics to really get to the root. And that was the other thing I had asked the other doctors is, are there other tests that will help us pinpoint better what is going on? And I always got no's. And he's like, oh no, there's other tests that we can do that can really show us exactly. And so of course the first, and this was very common conversation in the Bertolotti's Facebook group, was a CT scan. So, that was number one, was getting a CT scan, the bone density test. And then when I went to see him, he did a discography in the clinic. And I think that was the big one that really showed him exactly where my pain was coming from and what needed to be done in
And
surgery. So
was the Bertolotti's the pain generator or one of the pain generators?
it was not the pain generator, but he said that if I had had the surgery the other doctor was proposing, I possibly could have ended up in far worse pain immediately, because it would have put so much stress and pressure on that Bertolotti's joint that it would have become painful, if not immediately, very quickly.
So what did he do?
So he stabilized the Bertolotti's joint, fused both sides. Well, I've got beautiful screws and rods and all the things. But I believe it's L4 down to S1 is where my rods and screws are. So I get a little fuzzy on all the
I get fuzzy on that part too.
anatomy, but yes, but basically he stabilized that, put spacers in between the two discs that had completely gone. I
Yeah.
mean, when he did the discography, it was very clear that those were the two discs that were causing a lot of pain.
And the Bertolotti's had that sort of, it probably all was connected and contributed, right?
I think it's all connected and contributed. I had some other anatomy thing, and that's the thing that blows my mind is it's like doctors only want to find one problem. And I'm like, well, obviously I have more things going on. And so I had like what they call short pedicles, but basically it made my spine more unstable, more prone to wear and tear. And so stabilizing that area where I had the short pedicles, was another part of the puzzle. And so he really was able to explain that what he was planning to do should solve all my issues, and that, barring something crazy like an accident, I should not have to have another surgery.
So let's do the TikTok after the surgery. You had this
Yes,
in late 2025.
yes, November 2025.
What's your first memory waking up?
So I remember waking up like while I was in recovery, and it was painful, but I mean, number one, the staff at the hospital was unbelievable. I mean, my pain was under control so quickly. And the only thing I can compare it to is like I had 2 C-sections. And so, I went through, painful recovery, and, that waking up right after anesthesia. And I mean, just how quickly they got my pain under control and how they kept my pain under control was unbelievable. And so, I mean, I think within probably 4 or 5 hours, I was up walking. And, that moment where you like put weight on yourself, and, I got the walker, and I'm like, wow.
Okay,
Like,
and so you had come from Mississippi to Virginia. By day 10, you're
yes,
back in Mississippi watching your son's
yes, yes.
sporting
So
event?
um, yes. So I had my first surgery on Tuesday, second surgery on Thursday. I flew home the following Wednesday. Believe it was on Friday that week. I rode a very short distance, but to my son's basketball game, and stepped up 2 or 3 bleachers to and sat, and I had a nice little comfy padded chair and all the things, and it only lasted about an hour, but yeah, I sat there in less pain than I had been 2 weeks ago to watch a basketball game.
2 week mark, off all opioids. And
Off all opioids at 2 weeks, which was probably a little quick, but again, I hate the way they make me feel, and the side effects were just terrible. But yes, regular Tylenol and the muscle relaxers, not the crazy one. And who even knew there was a muscle relaxer that doesn't zonk you? Like, I was like, this is a revelation. They've been giving me these pills that knock you out for 12 hours. I'm like, where's this been all my life?
okay, 1 month mega baking.
Yes, so about a month in, about the 2 week mark, very light, stretching and just real easy stuff, but just getting some mobility. About a month in, I'm doing some decent exercises, walking. I'm walking every day, and so I asked my therapist, I'm like, hey, I normally bake at Christmas. Do you think it's wise? And he's like, well, again, as long as you're not bending, lifting, or twisting, and you know, he goes, maybe start slow. Like, don't go crazy the first time. And I said, okay. And I said, I'll make sure I have somebody close by to help in case I get in a, pinch. And so I do it. And I'm like, that didn't hurt. So like I do it 2 more times, make 2 more recipes. I'm like, wow.
I have that
Like,
you made 60 pans of cinnamon rolls.
but between that point and and New Year's, yes, I made probably 60 pans of cinnamon rolls, and yes, I did take some to my therapist in the clinic, and yes,
And then you're on a flight at the 2.5 month mark.
yes, end of January, I flew to Phoenix for a meeting, and by myself. Didn't have anybody to help me with my luggage, and again, my therapist coached me through the whole thing, and I got clearance from Dr. Haines' office on all that because I was not quite to my lifting of restrictions,
You
but
remember when you took the trash down for the first time? When was that?
um, it was probably somewhere in January because my son is in band, and January, February, March are kind of band honor band time. So he was gone for a couple of overnights. My husband travels a lot, so it was probably late January, early February when
Okay.
I was by myself
And
and
then,
had to handle the garbage.
awesome. I'm high fiving you. And then 4 month mark, really long drive, right?
Yes, mid March, we went to Florida for spring break, about a 10-ish hour drive. And that was when I played tennis. I went fishing, like standing on a boat that's wobbling and
Lovely
holding a
boat. Yeah.
fishing pole. You're sitting there having to use no pain,
Wow.
you know.
And then
Um,
6 months brings us back to the beginning, back to
Six
Tennessee.
months, yes, and this has kind of been in my head. I officially booked the trip when I got back from spring break, but it had kind of been in my head since November that I wanted to go to Paris because I knew my sister was going to be over there, and so, um, yeah, booked that trip, flew, and sure, I was stiff, but really more my neck. Sleeping in a plane is terrible.
Do you have
Um,
any pain now?
No, my back, I feel the hardware, like there's still that awareness
Yeah.
that there's hardware back there, but it's not painful. It's just more an awareness. And so, and he said that really it'll probably take up to a year for that to kind of wear off. So
Okay.
there's still some recovery to go. But I mean, I literally every day get up and go, oh, my back doesn't hurt.
I mean, what is that like after what was happening for 3 years? Like,
It is really, it's wild. I mean, every day I get up and I think, is this real? One, did I really suffer with that for that long and let people try to tell me that there's nothing that could be done? And two, like, it's really fixed. Like, you know,
gosh. Um, do you want to have your pretty woman moment and go back to any of those doctors and be like, you missed it?
I think I told you this when we first talked, but I did write a letter to the one that wanted to do the wrong surgery and the one that
Good
stood
for
in the
you.
doorway. Any other questions? And I tried to be very nice because I wanted him to listen to me. But I did write him a letter and tell him what I had done and why what he was planning to do could have been devastating, and just encouraged him to, number one, be a little bit more curious and sensitive, and if he really can't solve the mystery, don't hesitate to, like, why do they feel like they can't refer somebody to a surgeon that might have more experience? I don't know, that blows my mind as well.
I hope doctors listen to your story. I definitely do. And I really hope anyone who's in pain like you were is listening. For those people, what do you want them to know if they still haven't found their way to an answer?
Just don't give up. I mean, when you look at, I mean, when I looked at all of the research and all the things that have been done, how much research and how much, new techniques and things that are coming on all levels of medicine are changing every day. And so it just, even if 2 weeks ago there wasn't an answer, in 2 years, who knows? Like, don't give up. Keep searching. And I think that about everything. I told Dr. Haines at my 6 month, I said, I'm, I'm starting to worry about other things. He's like, solve the other problems. He's like what? And I'm like, well, 47, so my eyesight's going, my hormones are crazy. And he's like, definitely not my department. So that's the next thing on my
You've
list
got
is
other things to tackle. It's
cracking
amazing.
that code.
All right, and then I want to end on a fun thing, which is you've done Paris, you've done tennis.
Yes.
I don't know, what's the next thing you want to do?
Um, the next thing is just really enjoying my son's senior year. That was when I met Dr. Haynes face to face. I told him that was really my goal, was to be able to be fully present for my son's senior year, because my other son's senior year was when my pain started, and so I felt like I was distracted the whole time, especially the spring part of his senior year. I was in a lot of pain, and just be present in my family's life and get back to doing things with friends more often, all the things, just living a normal life.
Just living life. Oh, Libby, your story is amazing. I hate that you suffered so long. I hope other people find their way to answers sooner. And if they do, it's probably because they hear your story. So thank you so much.
Well, if I can help anybody, I would be thrilled.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.